Speedbowl Scene, a weekly auto racing magazine covering the events of the Waterford Speedbowl. 1995 brings a new management team to the track. During the 1995 racing season, Speedbowl Scene will be covering the race results, in-depth interviews with drivers and crew members, also interviews with track officials covering all the new rules for the 1995 racing season.
Hi, welcome to another edition of Speedbowl Scene. I'm your host, MG Geer. Coming up on this week's show, a special interview with Tucker Reynolds, plus all the highlights from stock car racing at the Waterford Speedbowl on this past Saturday night. So stay tuned for the fastest half hour in auto racing, Speedbowl Scene. Hi, welcome back to Speedbowl Scene. Joining me this week is Tucker Reynolds, driving a Freddie Beaver's 716 Modified. Tucker, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Mark.
Hey, no problem. And the 716, famous checkerboard. What's it like driving for Freddie Beaver?
It's a great experience. You know, I thank Freddie a lot for giving me the opportunity to drive for him, and it's just a great experience.
Okay, so what about some of the other people that have driven this car before you? Now you're kind of following suit with them.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's kind of hard to sit in the seat of where, you know, some of the legends of the Speedbowl and our local area racing have sat before, and try to produce the same type of races that they did for Freddie years ago, and just trying real hard and to give the car the showing that it deserves.
Now, who are some of those guys?
Bobby Potter, for one, and probably the most notable is Charlie Webster. Excuse me. I haven't really learned the most of the history that this car here has, but I know there's a lot of history to it.
Right. So how did you get involved in racing? How did you get started in this whole crazy business?
Years ago, kid, come to the Speedbowl, watch my father go around the track. He raced Grand Americans and what were late models back then. And you know, just something I'd always wanted to do, and 7 years ago there was a division that the Waterford had, and it's the Enduro division. It was an affordable enough and easy enough car to build that I could do it on my own, and built my first race car and went racing.
All right. So then you moved up from the Enduros
I sort of stuck around in Enduros for quite a while. Right up until last season, even, when the name had switched to the Pure Stock ranks, and raced with them for a number of years. We tried our first year at late model racing. We had a couple bad weeks, which stopped our season.
Yeah, I remember a couple of those weeks. They were pretty serious.
I couldn't afford to keep rebuilding the car every week, and so we regrouped, and I had an excellent season that year with the Pure Stock and finished second in points. And, you know, and then next year my father decided to put another season together for me, and we went off to another track, and we had our first full year of late model racing. And last year, at the end of that year, when I first started racing that full schedule of late model, and Freddie asked me if I'd like to try the modified, and I've been driving it since.
So was that a tough decision, going, well, I don't really know if I want to drive a modified or not, or was it just like, yeah?
It was fairly quick answer of yes. I was more amazed that I was being asked to try the modified, and you know, knowing Freddie's a car owner, a true car owner, and to have a car owner ask me to drive his car for him, or to at least give it a try and see what I thought, and likewise let him see what he can, you know, see out of me as a driver for a driver. So yeah, it was pretty exciting, and I accepted the challenge pretty immediately, almost.
What do you got for plans for the future?
Well, like I'm sure probably most drivers are, you know, planning out their future. I'd really like to make it my career. I've been trying real hard to go about my racing as a professional business instead of just a hobby. It's been a hard fought battle, but slowly we're climbing the ladder, and there's many more rungs to climb, but gonna keep trying.
Okay. Now, who's some of the people that support you on this car? Some of your sponsors, people helping out?
Probably one of the biggest helps this season was Hank's Auto Machine. He really helped us out underneath the hood of the car here and given us some good power to run with this season. And,
right. Any complaints? Because you can make them now. Because every race car driver I've ever talked to doesn't have enough power.
No complaints.
No complaints?
You know, I'm sure there's probably more power to be had, but within the realms of the rule book, you know, we're producing some pretty good steam under the hood.
Okay. Now, who else is on this car?
Kim Buckley with New England Computer Consultants has helped out Freddie for a number of years, and he's likewise come aboard again this season. We just picked up a smaller type sponsor, but Westbrook Pizza, local pizza shop here in town, is going to help us out with, you know, some food for the track. And
I know where I'm going.
My business, my mother and I, we support the modified along with a number of other cars at the Speedbowl and other local tracks.
Right. Now, what is that business?
Lighthouse Signs.
Lighthouse Signs, okay.
We've done the graphics on the car this season, and
I have to say you did a pretty fantastic job. The car looks incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, we tried real hard. I put a lot of thought into it over the whole winter time, and the vinyl market, the graphics market, side market, if you will, is growing every year tremendously, and the products that they let us use now and the capabilities that we have in producing signs you know, helps you along a little bit. It's, it's not so much the sign painter with a brush in hand anymore, but computers help you out a lot.
Right. All right, Tucker, thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for letting us use your shop to tape this.
Oh, you're welcome.
And thanks to Freddie Beaver for also letting us in here, disrupting your whole night of working on the car.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. We'll be back with more Speedbowl Scene right after these messages. Coming up next on Speedbowl Scene, all the highlights from the mini stock feature.
Saturday night was the first ever appearance for the mini stocks to run a nightly show, and the winner of that feature event was Jeff Carnes in number 68 from Quaker Hill, followed by Dan Darset in the 53 from Chester. Then it was a 7 of Mike Fernald from Uncasville taking home the 3rd position. In 4th, it was the 49 of Rob Olowski from East Lyme. Following him was the 9 of Alan Coates from Groton, and the 23 of Albert Royce from Stafford Springs, finishing 6th. In the 7th position, it was the 6X of Dale Brockett from Durham. In 8th, it was the 2S of Jade Murkowski from Killington. Finishing 9th was the 94 of Scott Mason from Groton. And rounding out the top 10 was the 1 of Jeff Walsh from West Warwick. Then finishing in the 11th position was the 22 of Robert McCarthy from Fairfield. Then it was the 56 of Kerry Little from Niantic, finishing 12th. Then driving number 12 was John Bradbury from Berlin, finishing in the 13th position. 14th on the grid was the 7X of Frank LaFachelle from Hope Valley, followed by the 44 of Kim Buckley from Pawcatuck. Then it was the 13 of Luke Cussing from Mystic, Connecticut, finishing 16th. Finishing 17th was the 5 of Mike Walsh from Westerly, followed by the 67 of Brandon Flemings from Stonington, Connecticut, finishing in the 18th position. In 19th was the 66 of John Kembrich from Wallingford. Then was the 2 of John Delana from East Greenwich, Rhode Island, finishing in the 20th position. Finishing 21st was the 8RI of Art Allen from Ashaway. Finishing 22nd on the grid was the 01 from Ernie Bertrand from Guilford, Connecticut. Finishing 23rd was the 8 from Tom Metcalf from West Stonington, followed by the 54 of Doug Furho from West Suffield, finishing in the 24th position. The 11X of Jack Aquilina from Stratford, Connecticut, finished 25th. And rounding out the field was the 32 of Hall Thurlow from East Lyme, Connecticut, finishing 26th. Due to the amount of strictly stocks, a B main feature was run, and the first and second place finishers had the choice of taking the money or taking a starting position in the feature race. Both the winner, Louis Belisle, and runner-up Ernie LaRose opted to compete in the strictly stock feature event.
Coming up, a look at all the action from the strictly stock feature event.
Strictly Stocks ran a 20-lap feature event. Bringing home the win was Bud Keene from Clinton, driving the number 38, followed by Eric Webster of Groton in the 9. Finishing third was the 50X of Mike Caprio from East Haven. Then it was Moose Doughton in the 33X from Mystic, Connecticut, finishing fourth. In the fifth spot was Ernie LaRose, driving the number 22 from Plainfield, Connecticut. Then it was the 57 of Jimmy Belisle from Canterbury, finishing sixth. In the seventh position was Johnny Cambino from Hamden, driving the number 7. Then it was the 94 of Charles Bailey III from Oakdale, finishing 8th. In the 9th position was the 6X of Scott Souza from Uncasville, followed by the 12 of Alan Coates from Groton, rounding out the top 10. Finishing in the 11th position was the 33 of Chuck Rogers from Norwich, followed by the 83X of Ed Gersh Jr. from West Haven, finishing 12th. Finishing in the 13th position was the 39 of Soup Savard from Tathville, followed by the 85 of Danny Tiani from Norwalk, finishing 14th. Finishing 15th on the grid was the 8X of Ed Clark from Cromwell. Then it was the 01 of Frank Patone from Norwalk, finishing in the 16th position. And 17th was the 26 of Darren Mendito from Brooklyn, followed by the 74 of Joe Mancini from Guilford, Connecticut, finishing in the 18th spot. Finishing 19th was the 47 of Ted Chafee from Brooklyn, Connecticut. Following him was the 83 of Joe Gambino from West Haven, Connecticut, finishing 20th. Finishing 21st was the 41 of Lyle Wolfinger from Moodis. Then it was the 1 of Scott Cook from Waterford, finishing 22nd. The 66X of Rob Lasniak from Westport finishes 23rd, followed by the 13X of Tony Macrino from Waterford, finishing 24th. Finishing 25th was the 65 of Eric Edgerly from Westerly. And last but not least was the 29 of Donald Berg from Montville, Connecticut.
When we come back to Speedbowl Scene, we'll show you all the highlights from the late model division.
week wasn't any different. The feature race was won by inches. Cody from Pasco edged out the 19 of Phil Rondo from Baltic by about a bumper. Finishing in the third spot was Tom Fox from Plainfield, driving the number 3. Following was the 7X of Mark Atkinson from Niantic, finishing 4th. The 8 of Mark St. Hilaire from Bristol finished in the 5th position, while the 18 of Danny Field from Deep River finished 6th. In the 7th position was the 82 of Mike Holdridge from Madison, followed by the 58 of Kevin Devis from Oakdale, finishing 8th. In the 9th position was the 10 of Ron Slack from Chester. And rounding up the top 10 was the 51 of Rob Janovic Jr. from Waterford. In the 11th position was the 98 of Mark Barton from East Hampton. Following him was the 44 of Gary Preble from Deep River, finishing 12th. In the 13th position was the 12 of Gary Hartson from Killingworth. Following Hartson in the 14th place was the 9 of Tim Menyard from Norwich. And 15th was the 43X of Ron Angiolo from Brantford. Finishing 16th was the 25 of Mike Zaransky from Guilford. Then there was the 30 of Ed Field from Deep River, finishing 17th. In the 18th position was the 24 of Greg Peck from New Milford, and then the 39 of John Brower Jr. from Waterford, finishing 19th. In the 20th position was the 22 of George McGugan from Mystic, Connecticut.
Next on Speedbowl Scene, all the highlights from the modified feature race.
5-lap feature. 25 cars started the race, but when the checkered flag fell, only 11 cars were left running. Taking home the win was the 31 of Todd Sarabola from Stonington, followed by the 52 of Bob Hodder of Norwich. Finishing third was the 3 of Jim Broderick from Brookfield. Following him was the 43 of Jerry Pearl from Colchester, finishing fourth. Then was the 07 of Burt Marvin from Colchester, finishing fifth. And the 19 of George Moose Hewitt from Uncasville, finishing sixth. The 7th position went to the 21 of Michael Gaeta from Norwich. Sherman Forbell in the 66 from New Milford finished 8th. Finishing 9th was the 98 of Frank Mucciacharo from Milford. And running up the top 10 was the 47 of Scott Spaulding from Westmead, Rhode Island. Finishing in the 11th place was the 14X of Bill Anderson from Southington, Connecticut. And finishing 12th was the 31X of Richie Gallup from Agawam. The 33 of Mark Lajeunesse from Norwich finished 13th. 14th position went to the 27 of David Gaeta from Uncasville. Finishing 15th was the 31 Junior of Jimmy Smith from Woodstock. The 54 of Eric Byrne from Meriden finished 16th. The 4 of Paul Ingalls from Clinton finished 17th. 18th position went to the 14 of Warren Lee from Lebanon. Following was the 71 of Jeff Pearl from Colchester, finishing 19th. The 20th position went to the 4X of Bob Duran Sr. from Southington. 21st was the 16 of Rick Sleepy Knapp from North Wyndham. Finishing 22nd was the 716 of Tucker Reynolds from Westbrook. 23rd was the 58 of Mark Carl from Hamden. Finishing 24th was the 91 of Vincent Angles from Ansonia, Connecticut. And finishing 25th on the grid was the 16X of Mike Anderson from Southington, Connecticut. We'll be right back to Speedbowl Scene after a word from our sponsors.
With the 1995 racing season underway, here's a look at a few of the events coming up this season. Thanks for watching Speedbowl Scene. We'll be back next week with all the highlights from the Waterford Speedbowl on the fastest half hour in auto racing, Speedbowl Scene.